Hey guys, Charles Vamadeva, MaxVALoan.com. We're on to Module 4 in our series on credit restoration and optimization with my special guest here, Tiffany Cross from Dedicated Credit Repair.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Murrieta, California, and her company is engaged in the business of helping people improve their credit. So I don't know anybody that's more qualified to talk about what we're talking about. And Module 4 is new credit. That is the fourth segment of what impacts your FICO score, right?
Absolutely.
Why do they call it new credit? Because as I understand it, it's not really about new credit.
Right. It's super, again, one of the fun mysteries of why. We don't really get why they do certain things, but we were just talking moments ago about the fact that really it should just be called inquiries because that's really what they're referring to. When you say new credit, it kind of makes people think, well, isn't that kind of like the history that we just talked about in the previous segment? But really, it is inquiries, 100%.
Okay. Tell us more. What is it? Well, let me ask you this. I know this is commonly asked. What is a hard inquiry? What is a soft inquiry? What is the difference?
Okay. So a hard inquiry is any time you as a consumer are shopping for anything. You're pulling your credit to refinance, or you're trying to buy a car, or you're doing anything, frankly, where you're providing your social security number in exchange for approval for some type of loan or lending scenario.
Okay.
What people don't realize is you will lose 5 to 10 points every single time, on average, somebody pulls your credit report. So it's not something you do, just haphazardly hoping that you know what's on the other end of that, that pull. You want to kind of go into it eyes wide open, already knowing what your scores are and what you look like.
Let me ask you this. It hurts your score at that moment. At what point in time in the near future does it not have that negative impact?
So inquiries are the only thing that negatively impact the FICO score for just 2 years. So earlier we talked about, how long things stay on your credit that are negative, late payments, collections, things like that, 7 years. Inquiries are 2. So although they're still substantial and they can be a risk, it can be a risk algorithm that they basically use, mathematical risk factor to determine how likely they want to, lend to you. But just know 5 to 10 points pretty much within the first month of those hitting. But soft inquiries, to your original question, are totally different. That's when you as a consumer decide you'd like to go kind of see what you look like on paper before someone looks at your credit. And you can go to various websites, consumer websites, not shopping for something. And that's considered a soft inquiry.
So like a self-check in a way. Okay, and there's services that provide that.
Absolutely.
I'm looking at my list of questions here. What is the best way to avoid a hard inquiry when you're buying a car?
Okay, so this is where we always want to send you to myfico.com. That's myfico.com. Earlier, we talked about the fact that there's about 9 or 10 FICO scores. So it's very important to know when I'm going to go into that car dealership, I need to know not what the FICO score looked like when I was at the bank applying for credit cards, because it's different. I might have a 40-point lower auto FICO than my credit card FICO. So go to myfico.com. Of course, it's not free. Nothing's free, really. That's worth having nowadays. So we got to really make sure we know what we're talking about. I want to say it's, $40 or something like that on their website. But you're going to get the real deal. You're going to see exactly what you look like. And that way you can start talking to your, whatever, the car dealership.
Financial advisor, whoever, your salesperson, whatever.
Yeah. And not get the big flurry of inquiries on there.
Do utility companies, do they pull soft inquiries or you're not borrowing money. Well, you're not yet. I guess you're going to be paying. What is that? A soft inquiry?
You know what? This is one of my biggest frustrations because they almost always tell the consumer that it's a soft inquiry when in fact it's not.
It's not.
So be very careful. Obviously, if you need to establish services at your home, there might be some unavoidable. But in truth, it really should be something that you just expect it to drop your scores.
This raises an interesting question because a home buyer could be beginning their mortgage loan process. The lender pulls a credit. We pull your credit report. And then you go apply for utilities and you're still going to be okay. But perhaps if you had your credit pulled by a utility company right before you came to us, that might not
a good thing.
Same score.
Yeah, exactly. And then we always hear too, well, I thought that if I had my credit pulled for a mortgage, I could pull it 5 times within a month and it'd only affect my score once. That was something that supposedly happened with FICO years ago. Same thing with a car. They say, oh, well, as long as I'm shopping for a car, all within 30 days, those 20 inquiries should only impact once. When in theory, that's probably what's supposed to happen. But in practice, what really happens is if they don't like the fact that you gave them a score, unlike the one that they got for free on Credit Karma, right? Because they're looking at a totally different score. Yours happens to be a mortgage FICO, and they don't like your answer. And they go across the street to another lender who pulls from a different website or different credit source. It's going to be 2 inquiries.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Credit inquiries are evil.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't said anything that makes me feel like this is a good thing.
I know.
You're basically being penalized for applying for credit.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it stays on there or has an impact for 2 years.
It does. And, at the end of the day, too, the frustration that a lot of people have is, why am I paying for my score? It's my score. Why do I have to pay for that?
Interesting thing is, there are 5 factors that impact the FICO score. And from what I'm hearing, the 4th factor, which is 10%, is labeled new credit, but it's really not new credit. It's inquiries. Application for new credit. Any last words of wisdom you want to throw in on this topic before we go on to the next module?
I highly recommend that nowadays more than ever, especially with everyone purchasing online, get a credit monitoring insight in place, because if someone else is running your credit and you don't know it, they have your identity, they're using your social security number, you need to know right away. It is so much easier to help someone with identity theft when it's first happening than if it's been, a long series of use. So,
good to go.
Yeah.
Good intel. Thank you for all this information. We just got talking about new inquiries, which impact the score by 10%. Which isn't so bad, but it's still something, huh?
Still counts. Yes.
And so I guess I would add to this, be careful what you do right before you apply for a mortgage.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to impact your score. Tiffany Cross and her company, Dedicated Credit Repair, are in the business of raising scores, improving credit, looking for inaccuracies, right?
Absolutely.
I know they do a phenomenal job with numbers on the screen. And in the 5th and last module, we're going to talk about diversification of credit with a fancy word. We'll see you on that next module.